No surprise, Fernando Mendoza was the first overall pick at the 2026 draft. It was always him. It was always going to be him. He had an absolutely incredible season at Indiana that ended with a Heisman Trophy and national championship. For that, he gets rewarded by having to play for the Raiders. Not exactly an awesome situation to go to, but being the first pick is well-deserved. His story is an unlikely one. I still remember watching him play at Cal, of all places. It's wild to think that this is where we are now, but make no mistake, Mendoza is a dog. So how did he get here? Mendoza was born in Boston, Massachusetts, but grew up in Miami, Florida. He went to Christopher Columbus, where his dad played high school football and was actually on the same team as Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. A lot of irony there. In high school, Mendoza threw for 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He also rushed for 100 yards and a touchdown. He was a rated 3-star recruit. Now, Mendoza is obviously a very smart dude, to the point where he was actually committed to play at Yale, but he ended up flipping to play at Cal. He redshirted his first season there and later became the starter in 2023. He made his first start against Oregon State, Cal's 6th game of the year. Mendoza threw for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick, and rushed for 41 yards in a loss. He started off his college journey with 4 straight losses to all ranked teams, but then got his first win against Washington State in November. Cal ended up winning 3 straight to close out the regular season and made a bowl game at 6-6 before losing to Texas Tech in the Independence Bowl. Mendoza finished the season with 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. He also rushed for 2 touchdowns. Mendoza won the starting job for the 2024 season, beating out grad transfer Chandler Rogers. It wasn't an incredibly successful season for the Golden Bears, but there were definitely some good moments, like beating Auburn in week 2. Mendoza had 233 yards and 2 touchdowns as Cal managed to hold on for the win. Cal started off 3-0 in the non-con slate, but then it got real really fast, and it got kind of bad. They lost their first 4 ACC games and went 2-6 overall, with losses to 3 ranked teams, including SMU, who went on to make the CFP. Still, Cal made a bowl game at 6-6, getting into the LA Bowl, a game Mendoza didn't even actually play in because he hopped in the transfer portal. Mendoza, in his last year at Cal, had 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, plus over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing in 11 games. Mendoza wasn't exactly lighting it up on the stat sheet at Cal, but the talent was there, and everyone knew it. That's why, when he hit the transfer portal, he was a 4-star, and he got an offer from up-and-coming Indiana. The timing couldn't have been any better. Indiana was fresh off of its best season, going 11-2, making the college football playoff under first-year head coach Curt Cignetti. It appeared that the Hoosiers were a program on the rise, and with Curtis Rourke graduating, they needed a new starting quarterback, and Mendoza was that answer. But honestly, I don't think anyone expected what was to come for Fernando Mendoza and for Indiana. The Hoosiers took care of business in the non-con slate, coming out of it 3-0 after Mendoza had 5 touchdown games against both Kennesaw State and Indiana State. That led to the Hoosiers' first ranked test, number 9, Illinois. That test, it didn't appear like much of a test at all. It was a bloodbath. Indiana dominated 63-10. Mendoza carved up the Illinois defense for 267 yards and 5 touchdowns. 2 weeks later, Indiana had a big test ahead of them again, on the road at number 3 Oregon in Eugene. Dan Lanning, Dante Moore, a stacked Ducks team, and it was an incredible game. Indiana led headed into the 4th, but Oregon tied it early in the quarter on a Brandon Finney Jr. pick 6 off of Mendoza. Indiana needed an answer. Mendoza had to answer. And from then on out, it was all Indiana. Mendoza threw a touchdown to Elijah Surratt. Indiana got the ball back after a pick, and that set up a field goal to go up 10. And once again, Dante Moore was immediately intercepted, helping secure a big win. That was a huge victory, and Indiana just kept rolling. Now, arguably the most exciting game of the year was actually against a 3-win Penn State team that had already fired James Franklin. Go Hokies, by the way. Penn State went from down 20-7 in that game in the 3rd quarter to up 24-20 with less than a minute to go, but then with 36 seconds remaining. Mendoza had his Heisman moment somehow, some way. I don't even know. Mendoza found Omar Cooper Jr. in the back of the end zone, who somehow caught it, stayed in bounds, and that won the game. I mean, it was truly amazing, and if not the best play of the entire season. I think that was much more of an Omar Cooper Jr. play, but Mendoza made that throw. And I'd say it was Mendoza's Heisman moment, but not his most memorable play of the year. And we'll get to that in a moment. Indiana went 12-0, rolled into the Big Ten Championship where they had to face the defending champs and the #1 team in the country, Ohio State. It was low scoring, but it was a very, very fun game. I remember watching it at the bar, and there were some very upset Ohio State fans there, which is always fun to me. It came down to the wire. The only points scored in the second half came from an Elijah Surratt touchdown catch from Mendoza in the third quarter. Damn if Ohio State didn't have their chances, though. They turned the ball over on downs, missed a 27-yard field goal. Yes, a 27-yard field goal, and got the ball back with 18 seconds left before losing 13-10. Mendoza had 222 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. That matchup was #1 versus #2 in the AP poll, and it lived up to the hype. It also opened the door for Indiana to be the top seed in the college football playoff. After a first-round bye, Indiana had to face Alabama in the quarterfinals, and, well, that was really ugly. 38-3 final. Not even a fun game to watch, but it was closer for most of the game than the score did indicate. Mendoza went 14 of 16 for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. That set up a second matchup against Oregon. Keep in mind, that first matchup was tied with a little over 6 minutes remaining. This time, it was not remotely close. It was 35-7 at half and ended 56-22. Mendoza only threw the ball 20 times. He completed 17 of those passes for 177 yards and threw 5 touchdowns. I honestly still don't understand how that happened. Oregon was a very good team. I think maybe the second best team in the country. I thought they could win that game. Instead, they finished 13-2 on the season, having only lost to Indiana twice. If it wasn't clear then yet, it was obvious that Indiana was the best team in the country, and coming into the national championship, they were 7.5-point favorites for a reason. Remember, Miami didn't even make the ACC championship, might have missed the CFP if not for a 7-win Duke team beating UVA. Even I expected a blowout in the Natty, but that wasn't really the case. After a 10-0 lead at the half for Indiana, Miami didn't go away and started getting going. Mark Fletcher had 2 rushing touchdowns for the Canes, but what you could argue was the difference was a blocked punt touchdown for Indiana. An absolute killer for Miami that may have cost them a championship. Still, they did have a chance late. What feels like it was the real game-winning play came, of course, who else, from Fernando Mendoza. 4th and 4 on the Miami 12. Indiana only up 3, the play of the game of the season, and it came down to Mendoza on a called quarterback run. He takes it up the middle and just shows guts. He goes for a first down, dives, getting hit, landing into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, that is just rock star shit. It wasn't quite over from there. Miami scored and Indiana responded with a field goal to make it 27-21, but it gave Carson Beck the ball with 1:42 remaining and a chance to win it. Beck had a good college career, but it came with a few stinkers and big moments, and this was the final one. He was picked off by Jamari Sharp on a deep ball, ending the game and the season. Undefeated national champions. Mendoza had 186 yards and didn't throw a touchdown or a pick, but had the rushing touchdown of his life. He was the game offensive MVP, and that came right after he was named the Heisman Trophy winner as well. In all, he finished the year having thrown for 3,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. He also rushed for 276 yards and 7 touchdowns. Just a great statistical season, and it propelled him to being the #1 pick at the NFL draft. The Raiders ended up with the first pick after a rough season, where they went 3-14. Geno Smith was the starter, and it clearly didn't go well, so he got traded to the Jets. The Raiders also fired Pete Carroll after a single year as the head coach. They ended up hiring Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offensive coordinator, to be their next head coach. He is the 4th full-time Raiders head coach since they fired John Gruden in 2021. Not ideal. The Raiders haven't won a playoff game since the 2002 AFC Championship before they ended up losing in the Super Bowl to the Bucs. It's been a long stretch of disappointment and despair, and they've only made it to the playoffs twice since then. It's been rough, but there's a new QB1 in town, and at the very least, there's no way it can go worse than the last time the Raiders took a QB #1. But this video isn't meant to rag on Jamarcus Russell. Everyone already does that. It is a new exciting era in Las Vegas for sure, with Fernando Mendoza coming in and Clint Kubiak. Maybe this can be the turning point, because let's be honest, it's long overdue.